Assalamu alaikum ji. Today our topic is a short-term student visa, and there are two speakers, and the information will be given by the both person on their subject of specialization. Mr. Shobi is a co-host with me, and he is a solicitor in the UK and working on immigration law since 2011, and he's a one of a key man in a specific legal trainings, and he all the company and the Mr. Shubi always arrange the training sessions and the provide the immigration information to the different people. So right now, first of all, I invite Mr. Shubi that he will give you information about the short-term student visa legal requirements by the UK Home Office, and what will be the restrictions, and what are the requirements, and what will be the visa and entry requirements. So now I request from the Mr. Shubi that please start and can please give information to all participants about the short-term student visa.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nazim, for the introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. Good evening if you are in a different time zone, which is in Pakistan. I hope you're well. My name's Soibi, as Nazim has said. I'm an associate at Pacific Law. I qualified as a solicitor several years ago, currently off the roll, but actively involved in Pacific Law, in a training company, and we provide a lot of training on immigration. In today's session, I wanted to focus on, as Nazim has said, the short-term study visa, and we've got up to an hour to cover the material today. After I'm finished, there'll be a space for, if there's time, there'll be a space to ask questions. If I don't know the answer, then one of the team, then do drop us an email. One of the team, the accredited advisors at Pacific Law, should be able to help you. Let's dive straight into it. Let's start with the basics of what is a short-term study visa. We'll then look at some of the requirements. We'll look at the course. We'll look at, and along the path, we'll cover the cost and various components that you should be aware of for this particular type of visa. In short, the short-term study visa is a visa which is granted to individuals applying to study in the UK for a period of 6 and 11 months. It's a visa given to individuals who are looking to study the English language in the United Kingdom. So it's a very specific type of visa. There is an option for individuals who are, provided their course is not up to the 11 months. There is an extra 30 days granted at the end of the course for individuals to stay on in the UK afterwards. So if the course is for 6 months, for example, a student can stay on for another 30 days after that. If the course is for 11 months, then the total time to remain in the UK would be 11 months. So there would be no additional amount of time that the student could stay. The cost of the short-term study visa is £200 for the application. On top of that, there is what is colloquially known as the immigration health surcharge. That is a fee which is payable for a healthcare fee, so payable to the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. That fee is £776 and will need to be paid as part of the online application. So in total, it's close to, those two fees combined are close to £1,000 for when the application is being made. The short-term study visa is there are different components of the, which I'd like to focus on, of break this down of what the short-term study visa, the requirements, and so forth. So let's look at who is it for. So first of all, who's it for, and who can apply? So generally, it's a visa for individuals who are 16 plus, so adults, individuals, young persons who are 16 or older. There are different regimes for individuals who are between the ages of 16 to 18, and then those who are 18 plus. There are some additional requirements for younger people, so between 16 and 18, to satisfy and to fulfill. Let's look at the requirements. So first major requirement is that an applicant must be accepted onto an English language course that lasts longer than 6 months and up to 11 months and includes no other subjects. This is relatively, as it says on the tin, so to speak, relatively straightforward. English language course, it's a very specific visa, as I've mentioned before, and the time frame is as specified, so between 6 to 11 months. The course must be with an accredited institution. Now, this is a key phrase which we'll explore in a few minutes. But if you keep those two words in your memory, accredited institution, and we'll come back to that in a few minutes, that's an important criteria of this visa. The applicant, thirdly, must have enough money to support themselves without working or without help from United Kingdom, the government public funds. Relatives or friends can support and house students, but it's important that they have enough to support themselves. And fourthly, applicants must show that they can pay for their return journey, so they need to demonstrate they've got enough money to do so. It doesn't have to be their own money, but they need to have enough money and show that they've got enough money to do so. If applicants are under the age of 18, then they will need to have made arrangements for travel and stay in the UK and have the consent of at least one of their parents or legal guardian to stay in the UK. Let's look at the accredited institution component, which I referred to in just recently. So the English language course which a student studies must be with what is called an accredited institution. This is a little bit of a complex definition, and I'll do my best to unpack it in the limited time that we've got now. But of course, I think it should make sense fairly easily. There are two components of an accredited institution. The first component, a little bit confusingly, is that the institution must be an accredited UK institution, firstly, or secondly, it must be an eligible overseas provider. So that's that component. Well, let's focus on what is an accredited UK institution. And again, there are two limbs to this, so bear with me, and we'll get through this, get through the understanding of this. An accredited UK institution is either one, an institution which has a student sponsor license, and helpfully online there is a comprehensive list of institutions which hold student sponsor licenses. It can be accessed simply by searching on the internet, and it's stored on the UK government website. So there's a register of licensed sponsors. So that's limb one. Either the institution must have a student sponsor license, or limb two, it must have a valid accreditation and be listed by one of the following. And I'm about to read out a long list. Don't worry if you don't remember it all. So one of the following: accreditation service for international colleges. They've got all of these have websites. The Accreditation UK, number 2. Number 3, the British Accreditation Council. Number 4, Education and Training Inspectorate. That's in Northern Ireland. Eston, which is in Wales. Number 6 is Education Scotland. 7 is the Independent Schools Inspectorate. The Office for Standards in Education, known in England as Ofsted. The Office for Students, and I think number 9 or 10 is the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education. These all have websites, so they can be readily contacted and access these websites. So that, just to refresh, an accredited institution must have valid, the second limb is an accredited institution must have valid accreditation and be listed on one of the websites, one of the following organizations that I've just read out. There are about 10 different organizations that I've just read out. So that's the definition of an accredited institution, UK based. So bear in mind, let's go back to the beginning. Your English language course must be with an accredited institution. Well, what is an accredited institution? Helpfully or not helpfully, an accredited institution is called, firstly, either an accredited UK institution, or secondly, an eligible overseas provider, and we'll come on to that in a few minutes. We've just focused on what is an accredited UK institution. An accredited UK institution, there are 2 definitions. The first definition, the first limb, which I talked about, is it must have a student sponsor license, or it must have a valid accreditation and be listed by one of the organizations that I've read out. I hope that makes sense so far, and I hope I've not lost you. The eligible overseas providers is if we hark back to what I said initially, is a second limb of the first question. That basically provides for there's an overseas institution. Let's say there's the university in Lahore, and there are requirements that has students, full-time students, and the students want to, for example, come over as part of their degree and spend 6 months in England to study in the English language, as an example. For such institutions, there are 3 requirements. Firstly, it must hold its own national accreditation. So, for example, this university in Lahore has to have its own national accreditation. Secondly, it can't offer more than half of its educational program in the UK. And thirdly, it must offer programs that are equivalent to a UK degree. So that's a little bit about the course, and we'll talk about the documents that need to be evidenced as well. So what have we learned so far? So the short-term student visa is a visa for a period of between 6 months and 11 months given to students who want to study the English language. So specifically the English language. The course must be provided. So when you're applying for the visa, it must be provided by an accredited institution. And we've looked at what the definition of an accredited institution is. The cost of the application, as we've said, is close to £1,000. So it's a split fee of the application fee, which is £200, and then the immigration health surcharge of £776. We'll move on to the documents which you'll need to evidence as part of your online application. And bear in mind, it's the application should be prepared, and so these documents are to be prepared. And I think Home Office best guidance is always that all documents should be provided at the same time, not in bits. So you'll need to provide a current passport, and there will need to be a blank page, at least one blank page on there for the visa. There'll be the student will need to show evidence that they can support themselves during the trip, and this would be simply bank statements or pay slips for the last 6 months, which show that there's sufficient money for the student to support themselves in the trip during the trip. Details of where the student intends to stay and their travel plans. Although important to note that accommodation and travel should not be paid for until the visa has been approved, and then evidence that the student has paid their course fees, or that they've got enough money to pay the course fees at this accredited institution. So with on the accommodation point, of course, there are websites that are international websites such as booking.com, whereby you can these days you can reserve a room without or for example, if you were to reserve, someone's coming for staying in a hotel, for example, or wherever they're staying, there are ways to reserve somewhere without necessarily paying for it and that is what will need to be evidenced in the application. Of course, if someone's staying at a house, there are ways to evidence that as well. For individuals living in Pakistan, there'll also need to be tuberculosis test results and contact details for under 18-year-olds, contact details for at least one parent or guardian in the home country. So in Pakistan, that will need to be provided as part of the application. For the course itself, the applicants will need to show and demonstrate an acceptance letter from the course, and that should include certain key bits of information such as the name of the course, the duration of the course, and the cost of the course, including if any accommodation is provided, the cost of that as well. You'll need to, if an applicant is being sponsored, then they'll need to include details of the financial sponsors, job, salary, savings, or money that will support the studies. If the individual is studying at a university in Pakistan, for example, but they're resident outside of Pakistan, then they'll need permission to be in the country in Pakistan if they're not a national. If under the age of 18, students will need to provide additional documentation if they're traveling by themselves. So they must have written consent from both parents, or if one parent has sole responsibility, one parent, or their legal guardian. And in this written consent, it must state three things. It must say that the parents or legal guardian consents to the visa application, so the online application, consents to, secondly, the living arrangements in the UK and the proposed living arrangements and care, and thirdly, the proposed travel to the UK. The written consent must cover all three areas. In addition, there'll also need to be proof that there is somewhere that the student has somewhere to stay, and this will need to cover four different parts. So the name and date of birth of the person that the student's planning to stay with, the address where the student proposes to live, details of the relationship with the person that the student is looking to live, and consent in writing from that individual that they propose to look after the student during the stay in the UK. That is for individuals that's the additional documents required for individuals under the age of 18. There are some added rules if the student under the age of 18 is going to be looked after for more than a month by someone who is not a close relative, and there's a requirement just to inform the relevant local authority about that if the individual is under the age of 18. So that's sort of a brief sort of so far brief covering of the documents required, and what we'll just look up before we move on to the next section. We'll just rehash that the documents. It's important to just bear in mind that there are additional requirements for the under 18s, which I mentioned during the second half of what I was just talking about, traveling by yourself. That does not apply to the regular applicant over the age of 18. So how is the application made? It's an online application. When can you apply? So you'll need to be, of course, accepted onto a course date. It's the time limit to apply is 3 months before the actual course begins. So, or before the individual travels to the UK. So only after that 3 month threshold has been hit can someone apply. So applicants cannot apply before the 3 month, with more than 3 months remaining. Of course, they'll need to be as part of that. As part of the online application, there'll be the opportunity, or they'll need to book on to an appointment at the Visa Application Centre to provide documents and prove their identity. Allow enough time for all this to take place. Visa Application Centre slots can be limited at the best of times. So it's important to give oneself enough time. And then, of course, the application, do bear in mind that the Visa Application Centre could hold on to the applicant's passport and documents while processing the application. So do bear that in mind. The decision processing time varies. It shouldn't take more than 3 weeks. Is a general rule of thumb, but of course it would vary depending on the current Home Office processing times. As I've said, the application is done online, and there is a link that there's a link to the form that you complete online. So that should be relatively easy to locate. You can, of course, apply for it yourself. You can, of course, seek for legal support to apply and to make sure the application is fully and comprehensively prepared. There are a plethora of options available as well for that. What I would say, just covering finally, just a little bit about the condition, about successful. What happens if the application is successful? If the application is successful, brilliant. The applicants, so students, are required to register with the police once they come to the UK. There are also conditions attached to the visa. So, for example, there's a condition that students cannot work and cannot seek employment in the UK, either whether it's paid or unpaid, and they're not allowed to, of course, enroll for a course of study that includes a work placement or work experience. Now, that doesn't mean that students can't volunteer. They can volunteer, but it's important that there's no contract of employment in place. It mustn't take it must be a genuine volunteer position, and it would usually be helping an established charity or voluntary or public sector organization. and students wouldn't be allowed to receive payment in kind for that. So that's just important to bear in mind as to the conditions. Couple of ancillary points. The dependents aren't allowed on this visa, so not permitted. It's also not permitted to switch. So switching is a concept of person A is in the UK on a certain visa. They want to prolong their stay in the UK by applying for a different visa. Well, that's not possible under the short-term study visa. The application has to be made from outside of the UK. So that's important to note. Applicants cannot apply for further permission to stay in this country. So they would have to return back to their country after wherever they're from. So if they're going back to Pakistan, they'd have to go back to Pakistan before, say, maybe they wanted to do a master's degree under student visa, which is a different type of visa, then they'd have to go back to the country first as well. So important to note, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, the visa would be for only 11 months. So after that, individuals would be expected to return back to return back to their country. And I think there are some other points which would be which revolve. There's some helpful information to just revolving around the intention to study, which I think can play a big role in the processing of the application, which is just important to bear in mind. And it revolves around the Home Office when processing these applications is concerned that individuals are planning to do what they say they're going to do. So applicants, when they apply, they have the intention to go back to the country. So that is going to be when a successful application is prepared. That is an important component, and it's important to emphasize that the applicant's intention to study on a short-term visa really needs to be delineated and prepare and outlined properly to give the application the highest chances of success. And that can be shown by some of the things I mentioned already, establishing that they've got enough funds, giving a true account of how long they intend to stay in the UK, that they need to genuinely intend to study here on a course that would be completed during their stay, genuinely intending to study at an accredited institution, not intending to study at a state-funded school or academy, for example, not intending to use frequent and successive periods of study as a means to live in the UK or to circumvent requirements of other visas, namely a student visa or child student visa. They must have enough money to support themselves, and they must intend to leave the UK within 30 days of their period of study. So these points, these almost bullet points, are very important to establish the intention, and to a successful application, to increase the odds of success at the application should look to deal with each of these points, either expressly or implicitly. So it's important to prepare the application as such. Lovely. I think that's all I'd like to really delve on in relation to the short-term student visa for now. I will just briefly say, well, what have we looked at today? So we've looked at the short-term study visa, which is a 6 to 11 month visa for individuals looking to study the English language specifically in the UK. It can be given to anyone over the age of 16. There are different rules which apply for 16 to 18-year-olds. There are additional requirements, should I say, documents that they'll need to evidence. The cost of the visa comprises the application fee, which is £200, plus the immigration health surcharge, £776 at present, and that just allows applicants to access the NHS, the National Healthcare System, once they're in the UK. The course, the English language course, needs to be at an accredited institution, and again, we looked and explored what that involves, or what the different definition of that. An accredited institution must be either an accredited UK institution, or one that has one that's abroad, that meets the relevant, and overseas institution that meets the relevant criteria. An accredited UK institution is one that either has a UK a student sponsor license, and you can access a list of a register of those institutions online. So if once you found the course, or alternatively, it's one that is accredited, and you remember there were 10 institutions I read out, so it's registered, listed by one of those. An overseas institution is one that must have a valid institution nationally in its own country, and that would facilitate overseas students to spend not more than half their degree in the UK, and that's a great option for individuals who are existing students. Then we looked at some of the documents required, and many of them are logical. You need a passport. You need to show evidence that you've been accepted onto a course. You need the accommodation. You need to show details of the accommodation. You need to evidence that your intention to travel. Of course, you don't need to book those things until the visa has been accepted. If you're a child, if you're between 16 and 18, also you need to show that. You need to show the written consent from parents or legal guardian as well. And remember, it's both parents unless one has sole responsibility, and it just needs to tick off those areas of acceptance as well. And then just bear in mind, how do you apply for the application? It's an online application. Apply for it online. You can do it yourself, or of course, there are lots of professionals who can help you with that, to make sure that you're preparing your application with zero errors or minimal chances of it being refused or rejected. And how long does the application take? It's processed usually within about 3 weeks, so you'll receive a decision fairly quickly. Once you've applied, you'll need to visit a visa application center, and then bear in mind that they could take your passport whilst they're processing the application. If the visa is successful, then you'll need to upon arrival to the UK, applicants will need to, or students will need to, register with the police, and then they'll also need to register with the police, and there'll be a condition on how much work they can do. They cannot do employment type work. It's not a visa for that type of work, but they can do volunteering, which they can't get paid for or reimbursable, or payment in kind, should I say. So with that's all I have to say for now. And Nazim, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Jubi, for a detailed session. And I have multiple questions, but some questions were already discussed. But later on, these are the short list of questions. So please reply all the questions. Maybe we cannot reply all the questions, but we try to reply some questions. And particularly, I separate the questions in two segments. One is related with the immigration laws, and the other related with the colleges and course fees. So first of all, I ask only the question related with Mr. Shubi, and after that we shall start I shall start a communication in Urdu. So if someone have a poor English communication skills, so I can easily guide that person in Urdu language. So my Mr. Shubi, my first question is: dependent allow on this visa?
No, so dependents are not allowed under this visa. Yeah, so it'll just be for the student themselves.
Sometimes there is a perception in a market that a child can bring his or her parents as a dependent on you. Is there any type of visa or immigration facility given by the UK government?
Yes, so when I say dependents are not allowed. Now, of course, if there are two categories, as I mentioned before, you've got individuals between 16 and 18, and then you've got the regular, well, you've got the adults applying. So for adults, of course, adults cannot bring someone who's over the age of adults cannot bring a dependent with them. Now, there are different sort of rules around 16 to 18-year-olds, as you can imagine. But in short, dependents are not allowed. There are other visas. You've got the there's, and depending on what the requirements are, there is a child student visa, which child student visa. Even on this visa, Anizim, so children under the age of, so if someone is traveling to the UK with an adult, so if a 16 to 18-year-old is traveling to the UK with an adult, then they will need to identify them in the visa application. The adult's name will appear on the student's visa, and so then of course they'll be refused entry if either of those individuals is not in the UK with them. They can identify up to 2 individuals on the visa application, and the child can travel with as long as at least one of them is traveling with them. The adult can apply for a visa at the same time, but it must be a separate application.
Okay. Is there any option available if the applicant is a less than 16 year? Can he bring his parents as a dependent?
Well, this visa is not for such people. So under 16-year-olds is not for this visa. Because this visa is a short-term study visa for 16-year-olds. So unfortunately, there isn't an option for individuals under the age of 16 to apply on this visa.
Okay, my next question: can apply for work visa allowed after this course? Means
yeah, I would just add on the. I know you asked about under 16 visas. I would just add, and I know how I said it a little bit before,
yes,
but
please.
I mean, it's a very different visa. There's what is called a child student visa, but that's for individuals under the age of 17. But that's to study in the UK, to study at a school, and that's, of course, they'll learn English here, but it's a fundamentally different type of visa. So just an addendum on that point. In relation to your question, just repeat your question for me. Sorry, Nitin. Your other
next question: can an applicant apply for work visa after the course?
Yes. So the no is a short answer. They would have to. They can't switch in the UK, and to this visa. They'd have to go back to their home country.
Okay, the next question, can applicant exceed his visa, means he can convert or extend the date of his visa after completion of the course, or if he fail the course, is it any
Yeah,
possibility?
certain conditions. So bear in mind that this visa is up to 11 months. So if someone comes here, the course is, for example, 7 months in duration, and complete the 7 months and they want to stay a bit longer, they can do that. They can stay up to 30 days longer. So yes is a simple answer. Individuals can stay longer, up to a maximum, well, 30 days after their course ends, up to a maximum of 11 months.
But the individuals cannot stay more than 30 days after completion of the course. May I right?
Yes, that's correct. No, they can't stay longer than 30 days.
Okay. अच्छा जी, another question, after completion of the course, what will student do?
So it depends on the individual. I mean, they may want to stay in the UK for 30 days, if their conditions permit. If not, they would need to look to return back to the UK, return back to their home country or where they're studying, for university, or onward travel if that's the case.
Okay, the next question is not a legal, but you make comment on it. Why are not work allowed to student?
Why are students not allowed to work?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, an economic thing would be to say, well, it would be brilliant if people could, the more people working, of course, the better for the economy. But I think there's this, why can't students work in the UK, on this visa?
Yes.
Students on this visa. I think it's just because it's designed it's a very specific visa. So first of all, it's only to study the English language. And so it's designed almost as a cultural, England wants to, um, encourage the use of the English language in the UK. And I guess that's probably the primary foreign, diplomacy objective here, is to encourage the adoption of English and to spread the use of the English language. So they're not really interested. The government's probably not really interested for this visa in terms of getting people to work here and so on. It's very specific. It's so that people who come here can basically go back to their home country and be proficient in English, and hopefully that probably helps England. That's probably one way of looking at it.
Next question, if any refusal, what will the student do? The next question, in case of refusal, if someone apply for a visa and his visa refused by the home office, so what will be the remedy for that person?
Yeah, so well, this is where making sure this is sometimes where coming to a professional for help can be a very good thing, because with all walks of life, Nazim, prevention is better than cure. And it could be that the professional actually, by preparing your application thoroughly, by making sure, that you'd hope they prepare thoroughly and they've got experience doing these applications, you would hope that they would prepare, reduce the risk of refusal. So that's part of the answer, is make sure you prepare the application as thoroughly as you can beforehand. Now you can take on board some of the advice I've given you. Hopefully that should reduce the risk of refusal. Alternatively, approach someone who you think can do who can do the job thoroughly and properly for you. So a professional. Pay a little bit of money, but if it's successful, then it's probably worth the money. If it is refused, refusal, of course, is an unfortunate fact of life for many visa applications, and depending on the visa type, there would have to be, and it depends on the dates. I guess it partly depends on when the course is taking place. So if you give yourself enough time, before applying for the visa, so the door window opens 3 months before the course starts. So if you apply as soon as possible, you give yourself the best possible chance and more time to deal with the the application. There's no right of appeal. So on this type of, there's no right of appeal on this type of visa.
Okay. We already covered this question. It's related with the job during the study, and then let me. So the next question: can applicant convert his visa in on a student visa application during or after completion of the course?
So can a student, can a short-term student visa
Yes.
convert their visa? No, that it's not designed. No, unfortunately, it's not designed for that. It's not designed to convert their visa. Unfortunately, not.
Okay. There are multiple more questions, but I think now I should start to answer the question, reply the question related with the college and the accommodations and the others. So thank you very much. And if someone have a question, I shall send you a text message and please reply me. And furthermore, I would like to inform you people, if someone is interested in legal services and would like to apply a visa by my co-host, he's a very competent person. So I will give you his contact details, and I will request for a special discount.
Thank you for the endorsement and the request for a discount.
Okay.
Nazim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. All
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Blessed.
Bye.
Goodbye for now.
Now I would like to reply the more questions related with the college, and I shall reply all the questions in Urdu. Maybe someone have a trouble in listening, so I shall try to conclude the event in Urdu. So the अच्छा जी, अब मैं इसको स्टार्ट करता हूँ दोबारा उर्दू में. पहला इसमें क्वेश्चन जो कॉलेज से रिलेटेड था, डज दिस esteemed institution provide accommodation facility? जी, accommodation facility जो है वो कॉलेज प्रोवाइड कर रहा है, और उसके लिए जो है वो आप अपना कॉलेज को रिक्वेस्ट भेजेंगे, कॉलेज आपको जो है आपके एक्सेप्टेंस लेटर के साथ अकोमोडेशन लेटर भी भेज देगा, जो कि आप एट द विद योर वीजा एप्लीकेशन या होम ऑफिस को या विद योर वीजा एप्लीकेशन यूके वे को सबमिट भी कर सकते हैं. और आफ्टर द वीजा अप्रूवल भी आप अकोमोडेशन की रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं. अगर आपने पहले नहीं की तो कॉलेज उसमें आपको फैसिलिटेट करेगा. और इसके अलावा मल्टीपल जो ऑनलाइन वेबसाइट्स भी अवेलेबल हैं, अगर आप चाहें तो वहां से भी बुक कर सकते हैं. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, कैन आई स्टडी अदर सब्जेक्ट्स बिसाइड्स इंग्लिश? नो, हमारे पास जो है वो इंग्लिश का ही कोर्स अवेलेबल है राइट नाउ. बाकी कोर्स जो है वो जब अप्रूव होंगे हम अनाउंस कर देंगे, बट राइट नाउ हमारे पास सिर्फ इंग्लिश का ही कोर्स है. और इसका जो ड्यूरेशन है वो कोर्स का 9 मंथ्स है, और 1 मंथ जो है वो कोर्स से ज्यादा भी स्टूडेंट यहाँ पे स्टे कर सकता है. और इसमें ये भी पॉसिबिलिटी है कि कोर्स का ड्यूरेशन एक्सटेंड होकर 9 to 10 मंथ हो सकता है, क्योंकि मैक्सिमम जो है इसकी लिमिट जो है वो 11 मंथ्स है. सो इसीलिए इसको 9 मंथ रखेगा, ताकि इनके स्टूडेंट जो है कोई सब्जेक्ट ना पास कर सके, उसको फर्दर कुछ दिनों की एक्सटेंशन, और आफ्टर दैट जो है ना विद इन 11 मंथ्स उसका कोर्स कंप्लीट हो जाए. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है, इफ एनी रिफ्यूजल चांस? यस, ऑफ कोर्स ये होम ऑफिस का जो है वो राइट है कि वो डिसीजन करे, और इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द जेन्युइनिटी ऑफ द एप्लीकेंट, कि एप्लीकेंट कितना जेन्युइन है, उसके डॉक्यूमेंट्स कितने स्ट्रांग हैं, और उसका जो है वो डिसीजन एवेल्युएशन वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ होम ऑफिस ही कर सकता है. उसमें जो है वो हम अपनी तरफ से या कॉलेज अपनी तरफ से कोई भी उसमें कमेंट्स या एडिशन डिलीशन नहीं कर सकता. नेक्स्ट इसमें क्वेश्चन है जी, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट लेवल्स ऑफ ई सोल कोर्स? बेसिकली वी ऑफर ओनली B2 लेवल. ठीक है, इसको इक्विवेलेंट ये होगा 5.5 to 6.5 बैंड हाइट्स के, या लैंग्वेज सर्ट का ये B2 होगा. और स्किल्स फॉर इंग्लिश का भी B2 होगा। इसी तरह जो है ना, ये बेसिकली B2 लेवल है जो कि ऑफर किया जाएगा। और इसमें जो है वो कॉलेज, एक क्वेश्चन नेक्स्ट था कि सर्टिफिकेट की वैलिडिटी और एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी के हवाले से, कि अगर जो कोर्स है वो कौन एक्सेप्ट करेगा और उसकी वैलिडिटी कब है। ये कॉलेज का सर्टिफिकेट है, कॉलेज अपना एक सर्टिफिकेट देगा जिसकी जो है वैलिडिटी लाइफ टाइम होगी, बट इसकी जो एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी है वो जो है वो डिपेंड करेगी ऑन द इंस्टीट्यूशन। जैसा कि बहुत सारे जो है यूके में HE प्रोवाइडर्स हैं, वो जो है एक्सेप्ट करते हैं दुनिया के मुख्तलिफ यूनिवर्सिटीज के इंग्लिश प्रोफिशिएंसी सर्टिफिकेट्स, और उसकी बेस के ऊपर एडमिशन देते हैं। तो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द अथॉरिटी कि आप किसको प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, और उसकी अपनी जो इंटरनल जो है प्रोसीजर है कि वेदर उसको एक्सेप्ट करता है कि नहीं करता। हाउएवर इन एडिशन ऑफ दिस, हम स्टूडेंट को ये रिकमेंड करते हैं कि वो जो ग्लोबली अप्रूव्ड अदारे हैं, जैसा कि आइट्स, टोफल, पीटी, लैंग्वेजर्ट, ऑक्सफोर्ड, लिंगो, किसी भी इस तरह के इंस्टीट्यूट का जो है वो स्टूडेंट एग्जाम में अपीयर हो और एग्जाम पास कर ले, ताकि जो है अगर उसकी एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी जो है वो और ज्यादा बढ़ जाएगी। और उनकी जो एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी का जो वैलिडिटी का ड्यूरेशन है वो 2 ईयर होता है। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है जनाब, कैन आई यूज स्कॉलरशिप और फाइनेंशियल एड टू अप्लाई फॉर दिस कोर्स। नहीं, ये इसमें बिल्कुल जो है फाइनेंशियल एड आप क्लेम नहीं कर सकते। हाँ, कॉलेज जो है वो अपनी तरफ से स्टूडेंट्स को कुछ स्कॉलरशिप ऑफर करता है जो विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम वेरिएशन उसमें आती रहती है, और उसमें जो है वो स्टूडेंट के क्वालिफिकेशन और मेरिट को देखते हुए कॉलेज जो है वो उसमें एक्स्ट्रा भी स्कॉलरशिप ऑफर कर सकता है। कोई मेरिट बेस्ड स्कॉलरशिप ऑफर कर सकता है, बट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ यूके की तरफ से या होम ऑफिस की तरफ से कोई भी फाइनेंशियल एड या स्कॉलरशिप नहीं है इसमें। और ना ही स्टूडेंट यहाँ पे आके कोई क्लेम कर सकता है सोशल बेनिफिट या आर देयर एनी स्पेसिफिक एप्लीकेशन डेडलाइन। जी, इसमें जो है हमारे पास जो कोर्स है इसकी जो है मल्टीपल इनटेक्स हैं, सो इसलिए इसकी जो है डेडलाइन से वरी होने की जरूरत नहीं है। अगर स्टूडेंट एक इनटेक को नहीं कैच कर पाता तो नेक्स्ट इनटेक में जो है वो ज्वाइन कर सकता है। नेक्स्ट इसमें क्वेश्चन था, व्हाट इज द मैक्सिमम एज लिमिट फॉर दिस वीजा। एज लिमिट की कोई कैप नहीं है, इसमें मिनिमम एज लिमिट का कैप है बट मैक्सिमम एज लिमिट का कोई कैप नहीं है। सो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द प्रोफाइल ऑफ द एप्लीकेंट। एप्लीकेंट ने प्रूव करना है कि ही इज अ जेन्युइन एप्लीकेंट। अब वो उसके पास क्या वर्क एक्सपीरियंस है, किस रीजन कोर्स ज्वाइन करना चाह रहा है, उसका वापस जब वो होम कंट्री आएगा उसकी यूटिलाइजेशन क्या है। अगर वो इन चीजों से, इन डॉक्यूमेंट से जो है वो होम ऑफिस को कन्विंस कर सका, तो हाँ उसकी उम्र कोई भी हो तो उसका वीजा अप्रूव हो जाएगा। और अगर इसमें एज जो है कोई स्पेसिफिक नहीं है, और अगर उसकी एज बिल्कुल फ्रेश स्टूडेंट है, उसकी एज लेस देन 25 है और उसका गैप भी बड़ा कम है, इसके बावजूद भी अगर वो सेटिस्फाई नहीं कर सका तो वीजा रिफ्यूज होने के चांस होंगे। एज की कोई लिमिट नहीं है, अपर लिमिट की कोई नहीं है, लोअर लिमिट का कैप है कि मिनिमम 16 ईयर जो है इसके ऊपर होना चाहिए। कैन एनी स्टूडेंट पे द फी इन इंस्टॉलमेंट्स। यस, ये पॉसिबिलिटी हो सकती है, बट क्योंकि इसका जो है वो वीजा जो है ड्यूरेशन काफी शॉर्ट है, और इसमें जो है अगर स्टूडेंट को इंस्टॉलमेंट्स करेगा तो ये कोई ऐसा हम इसको अप्रिशिएट नहीं करते, क्योंकि इसका उसका वीजा एप्लीकेशन के ऊपर भी नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है। क्योंकि एप्लीकेंट ने ऑलरेडी प्रूव करना है कि ही हैव अ गुड फाइनेंशियल कैपेसिटी। तो जो स्टूडेंट अगर फाइनेंशियल कैपेसिटी रखता है तो वो इसको फीस एडवांस पे करनी चाहिए। हाँ, इन एडिशन ऑफ दिस मैं यहाँ पे अपनी पर्सनल ओपिनियन दे सकता हूँ कि एप्लीकेंट जो है वो कुछ पार्शियल फीस पे कर दे, और रिमेनिंग फीस का जो है वो कॉलेज के लिए जो है डिमांड ड्राफ्ट बना के कॉलेज को ट्रांसफर कर दे, भेज दे और बता दे कि मैं, और अपनी वीजा एप्लीकेशन से लगा दे, ताकि जो है वो कॉल होम ऑफिस को बता सके कि वो फुल फीस पे कर चुका है या डिमांड ड्राफ्ट बना चुका है, ताकि जो है उसको वीजा ग्रांट होने में उसका सक्सेस रेट हाई हो जाएगा। अच्छा जी, ई सोल सर्टिफिकेट जी, बिल्कुल जी, डेफिनेटली आपके पास जो है वो, अब दुनिया में बहुत सारे ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं जो कि यूके होम ऑफिस से या वर्ल्ड वाइड जो है रिकॉग्नाइज्ड इंस्टीट्यूट नहीं है, और ना ही उन इंस्टीट्यूट्स के जो है वो कोर्सेज कोई ऐसा एक्सेप्ट होते हैं, बट उनकी एक अपनी क्रेडिबिलिटी अपनी जगह पे होती है कि उसकी जो है वो एप्लीकेंट के प्रोफाइल में, उसके सीवी में उनका इम्पैक्ट नजर आता है कि वाकई एप्लीकेंट के पास ये स्किल होगी जिसका उसने सर्टिफिकेट दिया है। सो इन द सेम केस जो है डेफिनेटली जो एप्लीकेंट यूके से इंस्टीट्यूट से हमारे हेड ऑफ एकेडमी ऑफ एक्सीलेंस से सर्टिफिकेट लेके जाएगा, ग्लोबली उसमें उसका जो है प्रोफाइल और सीवी में उसकी कम्युनिकेशन जो है वो एक ऐसा, उसके ऊपर कोई फर्दर क्वेश्चन मार्क नहीं आएगा। तो इसलिए उसकी डेफिनेटली जो है वो नई अपॉर्चुनिटीज फॉर द जॉब्स और फॉर द कोर्सेज जो के सब्जेक्ट टू इंग्लिश है, वहां पे उसकी एक डेफिनेटली एक अपॉर्चुनिटी जरूर वो नहीं ओपन होगी। अच्छा जी, is there any specific criteria for obtained marks in last degree? ये मुझे नहीं इस क्वेश्चन की समझ आई जी, इसका क्या है? आप मुझे जो है ना इस पे चैट में ना नंबर दिए होंगे, आप जो है हमारे साथ राब्ता करके, जो इसमें क्वेश्चन नहीं भी कवर हो सकता, डिटेल डिस्कस कर ले, फिर वहां पे भी इसके जवाब दिए जा सकते हैं। ये क्वेश्चन है जी, व्हाट अबाउट द वीजा रेशो? इसका जो है ना कोई भी स्पेसिफिक इसमें हमारी तरफ से नहीं है। इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द एप्लीकेंट, एप्लीकेशन एंड द एप्लीकेंट, कि एप्लीकेंट जो एप्लीकेशन दे रहा है उसका जो है वो वैल्यूएशन होम ऑफिस करेगा, वीजा जो है वो ग्रांट करना या रिफ्यूज करना ये होम ऑफिस का जो है वो इस्तेहकाक है। होम ऑफिस जो है इसको खुद वैल्यूएट करके वीजा लगाएगा भी या रिफ्यूज भी करेगा। तो इसके लिए हमारे पास इसमें वीजा डेफिनेटली होम ऑफिस रिफ्यूज भी करता है और एक्सेप्ट भी करता है। अब कितने परसेंट रिफ्यूज है ऐसे फिलहाल हमारे पास कोई स्टैटिस्टिक्स नहीं है। अच्छा जी, ये तकरीबन जो है ना इसमें काफ़ी सारे क्वेश्चंस कवर हो गए और अब हमारे सेशन का जो है ना टाइम वो भी कंप्लीट हो गया है। तो मैं ये चाहूँगा कि अब इसको हम ख़त्म करते हैं। थैंक यू वेरी मच टू ऑल पार्टिसिपेंट्स कि जिन लोगों ने भी पार्टिसिपेट किया, हमें सुना, बहुत शुक्रिया। अगर आप लोगों के फर्दर भी क्वेश्चन हो तो एनएस से कंसल्टेंट से, लीगल एडवाइज़र के, किसी भी काउंसलर से, ब्रांच ऑफिस से, मैनेजर से, आप किसी से भी राब्ता कर लें, कमेंट्स करें, कमेंट्स में भी आपके जो है ना क्वेश्चंस के जो है आंसर दे दिए जाएँगे। थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स एंड गुड बाय।